Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do something unprecedented. I'm going to share the entire Canadian Express entry process for free. My name is Daffy Scott Irima and I'm your presenter today. Actually, a lot of people on the internet they tell you not to go through the trouble of spending money on a visa assistance agent and that you should buy a course that breaks down this information from them. But today I'm giving you all that information for free. So my objectives today for this course is to introduce you to the Canadian Express Entry Program, excuse me, and tell you how it works. And the core thing would be to show you the 6 steps required to successfully become a Canadian permanent resident. And at the end of the program, I am going to show you something that is going to reduce the cost of the entire relocation process to you. You understand that the 6 steps will involve certain costs because there are costs involved in, excuse me, there are costs involved in the process. Every step has certain costs that are associated with it. But if you stay till the end, you're going to find that you're going to see how to reduce your expenditure by a few thousand Canadian dollars. So I'm going to put out a legal disclaimer here. You see, because the Canadian immigration process is dynamic in nature, depending on when you receive this material, some of the content in it may not align fully with what is obtainable at the time due to slight or major changes the Canadian immigration authorities may have made to parts of the entire process. Um, you see, the process changes over time. Sometimes they feel it necessary to change a little part of the process, change it here or change it there, and they have the full rights to do that. So, depending on when you receive this, some things may or may not have changed. So if you find any discrepancy between what you see in this report, in this video, and what you find on the Canadian immigration website, then what you find from the Canadian authorities should supersede what you find in this report. Also, you do not have the rights to print, reprint, sell, or share this guide or give it away. You don't have the right except through consent from me. And if you obtain this guide from any source other than Alsonat Enterprise, my company, please report to +234 8054 835557, and I will do the needful and contact my lawyers. So, in 2008, I actually obtained a certificate in database administration and object oriented programming, and I later obtained an international honors diploma in software engineering. That's just what I wanted to do, the only thing I wanted to do at the time. But I began working with a travel consultancy that helped me gain admission into Middlesex University in Dubai, and they were good. That's my offer letter. And Middlesex University is a British university, but they had a campus in Dubai and in Mauritius. And I chose to go to Dubai because I felt it would offer me a different experience from London, which our parents and some of our grandparents went to. In short, it's very popular among Nigerians. So I felt Dubai would present something a little bit different. So in 2016, I began working with a 10-year Canadian Embassy consular officer, and that happened till 2019. And in 2017, I worked with two other travel companies and helped clients with successful visa applications to the US and Canada. Last year, 2019, I launched my own travel business, Fast Easy Visas, but I still do collaborative work with the 10-year Canadian Embassy consular officer. So, why is this free? I have decided to share everything I know about the Canadian Federal Express Entry Program to my subscribers free of charge because being heavily committed to some other career shaping opportunities that are falling on me at this time, I cannot cope with the demand for travel services and give these other important projects the attention they deserve at the same time. So I have decided instead to provide information and support to my subscribers who seek travel services or employment and permanent residency, sorry, permanent residency abroad. That is Canada to be specific. I get lots of requests from people who want to live and work in Canada, and I think it's a very good way to serve them. And a lot of you have been my subscribers for some time, so I I think it's a good way to serve you in such a way that I don't have to specifically, consult for each one of you. So the other reason why this is free is that it happens to be the case that you are successful to the degree that you help other people to be successful. I don't want to go into that, but I think a good number of you may already know that. So, successful people know this and they network correctly to contribute to other people's success. In fact, that's the reason why you get paid in the first place. And unsuccessful people do not know this. And that's why they stay disgruntled and not doing too well. So, here we go. So, the Canadian Express Entry Program is a government initiative program, and it's it exists because the Canadian people or Canada as a country has an economic problem that they understand that a vibrant economy, a vibrant population, I mean, can solve or will solve. They have an aging population, and so really what they're doing is, hey, we want more people in our country, and if we want all these people in our country, why don't we just ensure that we are selecting the best? And now, because there are provinces in Canada, and uh, the Canadian government understands that the different provinces have their unique or specific economic needs. So they allow the provinces to have a say in who comes in because they are going to look at their own specific needs in determining what they need for their province. So in this slide, you can see that the number of people getting into Canada, accepted into Canada as permanent residents, has been increasing steadily over the years. And this is just a little graphic representation of the steps involved. Here you find 4 steps: create a profile, submit it to the entry pool, get an invitation to apply, then apply for permanent residency online. However, in this report, I have broken the system into 6, which is more reflective of what you actually need to do when you are trying to become a Canadian permanent resident. So these are some of the benefits of being a permanent resident of Canada. Of course, you and your family will be able to live and work in Canada permanently. You'll be able to study in Canada and receive subsidized healthcare benefits through Medicare. However, I have to note here that there's more, and the more has to do with the education system. schooling for kids is actually free if you are in a Canadian public school. And you know, the public schools in Canada are actually great. They're not like, they don't suffer the same things that American public schools have suffered in recent times. And um, when you are schooling in a tertiary university in Canada and you are a permanent resident of Canada, you are going to pay less than half. It's usually less than half the tuition that someone schooling in Canada as an international student will pay. And that's a very, very huge deal. So, for example, if the tuition fees for someone else is 15,000 Canadian dollars, you probably will be paying around 6,000 Canadian dollars. And that's a great one. Now, you will be able to sponsor other family members for permanent residency in Canada. You see, if you have other family members, one of the criteria uh, for having a smooth process when it comes to being a permanent resident in Canada is having another relation, a brother, a sister, someone that bears your surname or that is clearly related to you in Canada as a permanent resident or a citizen, whichever one. Now, it is such a huge bonus and boost to your process that if any member of your family is in there, you know that as long as they don't have a problem with you coming over, it's it's almost a done deal. It's like 70% of the work is already done, as I will try to remember to touch on while we go on in this presentation. So you will also be able to apply for Canadian citizenship. After spending some years in Canada, you can apply for Canadian citizenship and then you will have a second passport, which is very, very great considering that most of us are looking for other alternatives outside the Nigerian passport, all the other alternatives for ourselves and our families, just in case things go south here in Nigeria. Lots of people are looking for that. And come to think of it, your Nigerian passport does not belong to you. It belongs to the federal government of Nigeria, and that is why they seize your passport if they think it's necessary to keep you from going anywhere. And this is the case with other countries, Ghana, and so on and so forth. So I think you may remember when Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and his passports were seized. They didn't know he had yet another passport and he was able to get out of the country without any hassles. So, the six required steps for successfully becoming a permanent resident in Canada are: one, you get your education credential assessment; two, you do the language proficiency test; three, you create a profile; four, you arrange your documents. And let me say that creating a profile involves creating it and submitting it to the pool, the international pool. So the fourth step is arranging your documents. The fifth step is submitting your application, and the sixth step is stamping your documents. So before we begin, I'd like to touch on what your CRS score is. CRS stands for the Comprehensive Ranking System, and this is the current scoring system that awards you points based on several criteria, including age, education, job experience, etc. So your final CRS score is generated from all of the information that you have provided about yourself when you are creating your profile. Now, for those of us who live in West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, I believe, Sierra Leone also, I believe, we are familiar with JAM, and the JAM examination is an examination that is done by secondary school leavers when they want to get into university. And basically, secondary school leavers do four subjects, and their scores in each of the subjects are put together and cumulated to give a final score. And then, if that final score is up to the cutoff mark for the year, they would have passed and they probably would get their university. So there's a cutoff score for the year, there's a cutoff score for the university that they're trying to get into. So everyone who meets the cutoff score or surpasses it gets admission into the university. Now, those that don't cannot. And now that's the same thing with the CRS score. It's just the same system. For all the criteria they're looking at, you're being awarded points, and you'll be awarded points based on your age, the amount of education you have, your job experience, if you have Canadian experience, your proficiency with the English language, and then all the points you have scored will be cumulated. And if it is up to the cutoff score for the draw, then you will be invited. So really what happens is that there is a bi-weekly draw, where everyone who has a score higher than the cutoff is invited. And if your score is not high enough, the way around this is to go through a provincial nomination program. In other words, you apply to a province, because, as I said before, provinces have their own unique needs, and it has been designed that if a province says they want you, automatically your scores go high, and it's a slam dunk. Now, let me just explain to you a little further. The cutoff score is usually around 430, sometimes a little above, sometimes a little below. And let us say your score is so low, it's 300. You don't have a chance. But you apply to a province, and this province, they place high priority on agriculturists, and you are an agriculturist. And they say, okay, we want you. The system is designed such that you automatically are awarded 600 bonus points. You see, so that becomes a slam dunk, and you're on your way to Canada. At least you have succeeded about 80% of the way. So this link here shows you how to calculate your CRS score. You can calculate it by yourself, put in information about yourself, and it will give you an estimate of what your score should be. So you have an idea of what your score would be before you go on. And the graphic here just shows the things they look at before they calculate. They determine if they need you, if you're going to be in Canada. These are the things they look at to determine your score. You're scored on all these things here and more, actually. These are just the ones that stand out: your age, your education, adaptability, work experience, your proficiency in English. And also, before we go on, you have to understand there's something called the National Occupation Classification System. And that is what NOC stands for. So there is a NOC code. There's a NOC code for every job specification. If you're a doctor, there's a NOC code. If you're a truck driver, there's a NOC code. All these codes are codes that specify every profession or job type. Now, the codes are categorized, they are put into categories, and excuse me, there are 4-digit codes, and there are many of them, because you understand there are many professions and job categories, or job specifications. So they are now separated and categorized, grouped into categories. And For the Canadian Federal Express Entry Program, there are three categories that are eligible for the program. And those categories are categories A, O, or B. In other words, that's category A, O, and B. In other words, if your profession falls within A, O, or B, then you are eligible for the Canadian Express Entry Program. Now, what if your job does not fall within any of these categories, which we will talk about almost immediately? If this is the case, then the provincial nomination program is still for you. You can go through that program and still be accepted. You know, as it was said earlier, provinces have their unique needs, and the program has been designed to place a priority also on the needs of the provinces, because the provinces need to thrive actually. And so, if you are selected by a province, if you are nominated by a province, because you applied to the province also, and they say, yes, we want you, what happens is you have a slam dunk. Your scores automatically go very high, and you'll be on your way to becoming a permanent resident of Canada. So, we're looking at the skill levels now, the NOC code classifications A, O, and B. So for skill level A, you have professional occupations. So professional occupations fall into skill level A, that is job category A. And these are professional occupations that usually require a university degree or a tertiary institution degree. And examples of these occupations are doctors, computer engineers, accountants, and whatnot. So it doesn't have to be a university degree. It could be a HND and so on and so forth. So you have management occupations such as mine managers, bank managers, advertising marketers, advertising and marketing managers, and so on. In fact, anything that has to do with management. So this is skill type O, category O. And we have category B, and this category has to do with technical jobs such as chefs, cooks, bakers, electricians, mechanics, and so on and so forth. Now, in all of these three categories, there are many jobs. There are many jobs. There are quite a lot. There are quite a lot. And if you go to these two links, you are going to see the plethora of jobs, just so many. And it's very likely your profession falls in there. Trust me, it's very likely. So you can't click on this link, but depending on where you're watching it, you might see this link on your screen. However, I have put these links in my group, Fast Easy Visas with Dafiris Reams. I've put it in there in a text file in the file section so that you can go there and avail yourself of the links. You can click there, and it's just part of a free resource I'm providing to you. So, as said before, if your profession doesn't fall under any of these categories after you've visited those links, there's no problem. You have to apply to be a permanent resident of one of the provinces in Canada through an expression of interest. And these provinces, they have their websites and the specific methods for applying on their websites, which you are going to have to follow. So again, this is the link that shows you how the provincial nomination process works, how to go through the provinces if somehow you're not you've seen that you're not going to be it's going to be hard for you to be accepted through the Federal Express entry process. So this link helps you to see what you need to do in that situation, and then you can look at the province that you really want to apply to. Again, you can find this link in the group. So now let's go straight to the 6 steps. I've gone through this. I've listed the steps before, so you're already familiar with it. Let's go straight in. Now, this is the first step you need to take: the education credential assessment. Now, your education credential assessment report is a report by a third party, which is an independent organization evaluating your education credentials obtained outside Canada and verifying whether or not your credentials are valid and up to par with the Canadian equivalent. So, in other words, you're an architect and you have a degree in architecture. An independent body, which is not Canadian Immigration, is supposed to look at your qualification and certify that it is up to par with what anyone in Canada anyone in Canada may obtain. Remember, it's an economic program, and these are the things they care about. So there are organizations, there are international organizations that carry out this evaluation, this assessment, and they include ICAS, which is International Credential Assessment Services of Canada, IQAS, which is International Qualifications Assessment Services. We have ICES, International Credential Evaluation Services, and WES, WES, World Evaluation Services. Now, ICAS, the first, and WES, the last, are the most popular used, and WES is more popular because it has been known to have a shorter processing time. The reason is it had a shorter processing time. One of the reasons is that they don't bother to ask you for your secondary school results to have that assessed also. They don't bother to do that. They just do your tertiary institution. You send your transcripts to them, and then after some time they declare it valid. Now, recently they have started asking for your secondary school results also. So some people have now started using ICAS more frequently than they did in the past. Nigerians have started doing that because they're beginning to think, okay, there's not much difference, between ICAS and WES. So bottom line is ICAS and WES are the most popular, and they're efficient, and they tend to be faster, and that saves time. Time is money, as the saying goes. Now, if you are a medical doctor, you're not going to have to evaluate your credentials using any of those people there, like WES or ICAS. You're not going to do that. You're going to have to assess your credentials using MCCA, the Medical Council of Canada, and that's their website over there. And if you're a pharmacist, you're going to have to use the PEBC, which is the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada. So, as I said before, WES has been the most popular of all these organizations because of its shorter processing time. It costs 200 to 250 Canadian dollars to process, and the processing time is between 1 to 4 months. Trust me, you don't have to spend up to 4 months. You may not. One of the reasons why people find it, why it could take some time, is just because of how certain universities here in Africa are. Well, at least in Nigeria, we know that certain universities have upgraded their systems, their record keeping systems, so you can apply for your transcript and get it in no time. But some other ones are just a total, you know, like a total shamble, and trying to get a transcript can be a pain in the neck. So that can be something that can make the process longer. And outside of that, when you are sending your transcript, the school is going to send it over to West. When it's being sent, how you choose to send it counts. If you pay for FedEx, it's going to be faster. And if you pay for FedEx when they are sending it back or the report back, it's going to be faster. If you're migrating with your spouse needs to evaluate their credentials also. So if you're married, your husband or your wife needs to also do their credential evaluation. It cannot be only you. Now, when you've got your credential evaluation report, that report is valid for 5 years. And if you have a bachelor's degree, that gives you 120 points. It adds 120 points to your CRS score. If you have a master's degree, it adds 135 points to your CRS score. If you have a PhD, that adds 150 points to your CRS score. That's fantastic. Now, if you don't have any of these, don't worry. People who don't have any of these still do make it into Canada and become permanent residents. And you're going to see that at the end of this, towards the end of this presentation. So, step two involves the language proficiency test. Because English, excuse me, English is one of the official languages in Canada. They want to see that you are proficient in the use of the language of communication. And let me say at this point that you don't have to wait until you've finished doing your credential evaluation before you start doing your language proficiency test or before you start preparing for that. These two steps, step one and step two, can be done simultaneously. You don't have to wait for one to be done before the other one is done or is completed. So this is a test that proves your proficiency in all modes of communication in English. The modes of communication on which you will be tested are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And these are the minimum scores you are supposed to have for each of the sections. For reading, you're supposed to have a minimum of 7.0. For writing, you're supposed to have a minimum of 7.0. For speaking, you're supposed to have a minimum of 7.0. For listening, you're supposed to have a minimum of 8.0. Now, if you get these scores, this will add a total score of 124 to your CRS score. Additionally, if you are familiar with the French language, you can also do a French test, and whatever points you get there will add to your overall CRS score. So these are the tests you do to get a language proficiency report, and they are IELTS, the general version. Now, the general version is sorry, it's important because there are two kinds of IELTS tests. There's the academic version and then there's the general version. So you have to specify the general version when you want to do the IELTS test. The French tests are carried out by TF Canada and TCF Canada. Now, whether you do an English test or you do a French test, your results are going to be valid for use for 2 years. After 2 years, you have to do another test. In other words, if you do your test and you get your results and you do not use it to apply for Canadian permanent residency, it will expire after 2 years. Or let's say you are involved in the process and the process is not over and 2 years have passed, then you are going to have to do another one. So you do the test when you know that you're going to go, you're ready to go through the process. You don't let it expire. It's 2 years. I've seen someone who did this test and he was trying to move, but he did it and he chilled. And on account of that, it was clear that before he finished the process, his result would have expired and his application and his efforts would be invalid. So we're now on step 3. Now, before step 3 begins, which is profile creation, you must have done the first 2 steps. You must have completed those first 2 steps. So those first 2 steps are getting your education credential assessment and your language proficiency score report. You should have already done that. Now, this profile creation step has to do with providing all your information and putting it on the immigration website. You're going to provide so much information about yourself so that they can have a view into who you are and how well you match up with what they want. It is in creating this profile and submitting it that they officially now know what your score is. Because you see, you're going to submit your education credential assessment report, which is going to give you scores, the language proficiency test report, which is going to give you scores. You're going to provide information about how many years you've worked, wherever you've worked, what profession it is. You're going to provide lots of information. And so this is what this is about. So yes, the information you provide, which is a lot more than what you see in this slide here. It's going to help them determine your CRS score. It's going to make them determine your CRS score. And in this part, what happens is that you create your an account on the website, which the link to which is going to be in the group also. You create your account there and you just keep on filling your information there and you do it accurately. And you're not going to finish it. You probably will not finish it in one day. Most people don't finish it in one day because they like to be careful and be sure that they put in the right information. So you do that, and whatever you do in one sitting is not going to be erased. You can come back and continue from where you stopped because it's all in your account. You create an account, and maybe in future in this group, I'm going to demonstrate it. So you create your account. So whenever you log in, you log out when you're done. But whenever you log in, whatever you had done before, logging out before, will still be there. You know, whatever stage you stopped at will still be there. You can edit what you've put in there, and then when you're very sure that you have crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's and everything is just as is required of you, then you hit the submit button. Now, when you hit the submit button, your profile will be in the pool. It's an international pool of aspiring Canadian permanent residents from around the world. So it is actually competitive, but there's nothing to worry about because Nigerians still, as you know, they still make it. A lot of them make it. A lot of Ghanaians still make it. So that's the reason why you're getting this information so that you know how to make it, what's required of you. So when that happens, you are in the pool, and then every 2 weeks there's going to be a draw. Every 2 weeks there's going to be a draw. Now, when your CRS score, as determined by Canadian immigration, is equal to or higher than the cutoff score for that draw, you will be given an invitation to apply. So all that stuff you were doing, you were not applying. You were just putting your information in the pool. You were getting your education credential assessment report so you can put it in the pool. You were getting your IELTS report so that you can put it in the pool. Everything you were doing was so that you can create your profile and put it in that international pool. It is when your cutoff score is higher than it's when your CRS score is higher than the cutoff score that you are given an invitation now to apply. And I have to say at this point that if you are not given an invitation to apply after 12 months, then your profile, the profile you created and submitted and put in the pool, becomes invalid. If you're not selected, if you're not given an invitation to apply within 12 months, you'll have to do it again. Now, if you're not given an invitation to apply and time is passing simply because your score is less, your CRS score is less than the cutoff score, and if you end up being given, there are several reasons for that. One of which could be that one of the provinces you applied to, they selected you. They said, hey, we want this guy. You got nominated by them. So that will give you the 600 bonus points that I talked about before. Okay, so let's go on. So when you've been given an invitation to apply, that is when you now have to actually make an application. You have to arrange your documents and then apply. At this stage, you are like 80% successful because there are very few things now that can stop you from becoming a permanent resident of Canada, as we are going to see going forward. You are given at this stage 60 days from the time you are issued an invitation to apply to arrange all your documents and submit them. Now, let us go through the list of documents you are required to make available. You are required to make the reference letters for each work experience that you declared. If you said you worked in a school here and then later on you worked in a bank, you have to provide reference letters for each of those jobs. You have to provide a medical report from a specified hospital within your country. You will be told what the specified hospitals are. The Canadian government wants to ensure that they are getting healthy people into Canada, people who do not have a communicable disease that they don't want in their country. 3, you are going to have to provide a police report. Now, if you've been in any country for up to 6 months at a stretch, you have to provide the police report for or from that country. So over the last 10 years, if you've lived in any country for up to 6 months in one stretch, you have to provide a police report from that country. But if you have traveled, you've traveled around, but you have never been in these countries for up to 6 months in one stretch, you don't need to provide a police report from those countries. You only need to provide a police report from your home country in that case, your resident country where you live in that case. Then the other thing you have to provide is your proof of funds with bank letterhead and stamp. This proof of funds is an amount of money you need to have to show them you are capable of taking care of yourself and or your family when you get into Canada, because you're going to experience a settling down process before you can get a job and all that. You're going to have to rent your house, pay for electricity, pay for water. You're going to have to provide food for yourself and your family, buy clothes that suits the weather. And they know that there's a settling down process, and then you're going to fill the place and start applying for jobs and then get a job. So they have estimated how much you typically will need to not be a problem to anyone while you are getting settled in Canada. And I'll show you the exact figures which they have specified. So you also have to provide your marriage, divorce, or the death certificate of your spouse, whichever one applies to you. If you're married, you provide a marriage certificate. If you're divorced, you provide a divorce certificate. If your spouse has passed away, you provide a death certificate. The sixth thing you have to provide is you have to provide a birth certificate for all of your children. Now, if you have any adopted kids, you have to provide an adoption certificate. Of course, this is if you have children. If you're married and have children, or even if you're not married, if you just have children. So the next thing you have to provide is you have to provide scans of all pages of your international passport. Also, you have to provide passport photographs according to the specifications which they will give you. This is the continuation of the documents you need to make available. So you also need to make your language proficiency test reports available. You need to also make your education credential assessment reports available. If you were nominated by a province, as talked about earlier, you need to provide the provincial nomination letter. If you were offered a job, as is the case sometimes, you offered a job even if you are not in Canada, you need to provide the job offer letter. And if it applies to you, you need to provide an LMIA report. The LMIA report is a labor market impact assessment report. And this is because, you see, in Canada, priority is placed on citizens, then permanent residents, before non-residents and non-citizens are considered when it comes to job offerings. So citizens and permanent residents are considered before aliens are considered. And if a company wants to employ you because they really need your services, they are usually required to provide a labor market impact assessment report. In other words, a report that shows the impact of giving that job to a foreigner, to an alien, on the labor market, to show that it does not harmfully affect or impact on their local labor market, the labor market there. That is a requirement. So the employer has to make that report available. He has to go through the process. And so if that was the case for you, you need to make that report available. Now, veering off a little bit, there are some jobs that do not require this labor market impact assessment, and they are clearly specified as exempted jobs, but that's veering off a little bit. So these are the documents that you need to to make available. You need to arrange them, make sure they're all ready, and then you are given 60 days to actually submit them. Now, we talked about proof of funds. We talked about proof of funds as one of the documents you need to provide. And this here slide shows how much money you need to provide depending on how many you are going to Canada. If you are one person, you are considered a family of one, and the funds you require are 12,960 Canadian dollars. These funds are not being paid to anyone. They are those funds that you're going to use on yourself, for yourself when you get to Canada. If you are going with a spouse, your husband or your wife, you are considered a family of two, and you need to have up to 16,135 Canadian dollars in your bank account. If you are a husband, a wife, and one kid, you're considered a family of three, and you're going to be required to have 19,836 Canadian dollars in your bank account. And it goes on and on and on. But you will notice that there is a 3,492 addition. That is 3,492 Canadian dollar addition for every additional member of your family. Now, you have to submit your document. So at this stage, you will collect, you will scan, and you will upload all of your documents in your online Canadian Express entry profile within 60 days of receiving your invitation to apply. Your invitation to apply obviously is referred to as your ITA letter. You will also be required to provide detailed information about your travel history and your past countries of residence over the last 10 years. What this is going to do is it will make them find out if you need to provide a police report for any other countries you've lived in which you have failed to do. Finally, you must also pay your application processing fees at this stage. So you've arranged your document, now you submit your document. On your profile, where you created your profile and you submitted it, you log into the same website and you submit your documents. Now, the links are in my Facebook group, and you see it in the file section in a text file, a notepad file. Now, this is a breakdown of the visa fees you will be paying. Now, this you will be paying. The proof of funds you are not paying is what you just show that you have, because you're going to use it for yourself and or your family when you get to Canada. This here is what you pay. So if you look at this closely, you realize that the visa processing fee is 825 Canadian dollars, but the right of permanent residence fee is $500. So the total you pay is 1,325 Canadian dollars. Now, if you have a spouse, the same thing applies for her. Sure, for him or her, actually, you'll have to pay 1,325 Canadian dollars. The same thing applies for your spouse if you're going with a spouse, your husband or your wife. Now, if you have children, dependent children, for each child, you have to pay 225 Canadian dollars. Now, this is the final stage. Here, you have to go for your visa stamping. You'll have 30 days to go to your local VFS office and submit your passport for a single entry visa to be stamped on it. You will find the office, the VFS office in Nigeria, at this link, which also you can find in my Facebook group, Fast Easy Visas with Daffy Scotty Grims. So this process takes 1 to 2 weeks, but it can also take 4 to 5 days. What you're going to need is your international passport, 2 passport photographs, a printout of the email confirming your permanent residency approval. This is because after you have submitted your document, you are going to get an email confirming your permanent residency approval. And then once you have gotten that email, you have to proceed and get your visa stamped. Now, when you get into Canada, you will get a permanent residency card and you will not need that visa anymore. The visa that is given to you, the visa stamped on your passport. The terms on your visa will no longer apply to you because you would have already become a permanent resident. So that would just be put in the back burner, trashed. Now, this is a summary of the costs, the processing times, and the validity periods for each of the important steps along the way. And this chart is going to be available. I'll find a way to make it available to some of you and not all of you, but to some of you. Well, I can make it available to all of you. I think it's the best thing. So this is a summary of the costs for a typical 4, 5, or 6-person family. So here is a breakdown of the costs. When you add your education credential assessment, your IELTS preparation, your IELTS tests, your visa application fees plus right of permanent residency for you, your spouse, and children, the proof of income required, you'll find out that these are the different costs. You'll find out that the costs are not really, really specific. And that's why when people ask how much will it cost, we can't give a specific answer. Even this has tried to give the cost for different scenarios for a four-person family, a 5-person family, and a 6-person family. But think about it. If the husband has a master's and the wife has a master's and a PhD, the costs involved have already varied because the wife is going to have to pay much more to evaluate her credentials than the husband would have to. Or in fact, a 4-person family where both parents have just BScs will pay less than a 4-person family where both parents are more educated because of the cost associated with doing education credential assessment for all their degrees. So the costs vary, but this here chart shows what it should be for a 4-person family, a 5-person family, a 6-person family, and what you end up spending in your own situation will vary just slightly from this. You see, so down here you have the cost in Canadian dollars, and below you have the cost in Naira, and these Naira costs are going to be accurate depending on what the exchange rate is at the time. So now you have seen how the process works, becoming a Canadian permanent resident. You have seen how it works. Now, why don't I show you a method that can and will reduce the cost of getting into Canada and working in Canada? It's easier, it's cheaper, and it can be faster. So, I'm going to show you the ways to drastically reduce the costs and time in your bid to legally become a permanent resident of Canada. This approach is a unique and untapped approach that details an easier entry stream into Canada. And here are some of the benefits of this less taking official entry routes to Canada. Now, there are several alternate routes to Canada, alternate entry streams that is to Canada, but below I'm going to give you some of the reasons why this one is really attractive. First and foremost, you do not need a high IELTS score to be eligible for this route. You know, lots of people dread the IELTS examination because of the scores required. People know people that have done it and they didn't make it. In this case, you need only a 4.0 score. That is all you need. All you need. I mean, isn't that fantastic? That all you need is 4.0 instead of 7.0. So you also need very low proof of funds. You also need very low proof of funds. Now, take a look at this now. This chart below shows what you would pay if you're going to the Federal Express Entry program, and then what you would pay using this alternate route. Now, in red are the figures you would pay if you are going to the Federal Canadian Express Entry program, and in green is what you would pay if you're going through the easier route. If you're one person, if you're a one-person family, you're going to pay 12,960,000 Canadian dollars. No, you're not even going to pay that. That's just what your proof of funds will be. Your proof of funds would be 12,960 Canadian dollars. And if you take the alternate route, your proof of funds for one person will be 8,722 Canadian dollars. So that's about 4,000 Canadian dollar savings. If you are a family of two and you're going to the Federal Express Entry program, your proof of funds will be 16,135 Canadian dollars. But if you're going through the alternate route, the proof of funds is 10,858 Canadian dollars. Now just keep on comparing the different amounts in proof of funds you'll need to make available for a family of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 people. You see that you're saving several thousand Canadian dollars in proof of funds required. Now, that is really something. That's really a good thing. So the other thing is that the processing time can be reduced. It can take 3 to 6 months. I have to tell you that when you're doing your Federal Express Entry process, when you're going through the process, it can also take 3 to 6 months, but it usually does not because, you have to get your ECA reports and your IELTS reports and all those. So it can take quite some time. And then another reason why it can take some time is that you may not be selected from the pool on time. It could, if your points are not high enough, it could take some time before a province selects you. So that's something with the Federal Express Entry program. Now, in this case, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait and hope. If you have a low score, You have to wait and hope that one of the provinces is going to look your way and say, okay, we want him. You don't have to do that. So you also need low education qualification. You see, when I was on the education credential evaluation part of this presentation, I talked about people having BScs, people having masters, people having PhDs. But you see, you don't have to have any of these if you're taking this route. If you have only a secondary school certificate, that will suffice. That will be enough. Also, you get employed, you get a job and accommodation on arrival. On arriving in Canada, you get a job and you're accepted in and you are taken care of. Then the last thing is that you are going to be in Canada legally working, but you are going to be encouraged after 2 years in Canada to apply for permanent residency from within Canada. And if you remember, one of the things that contributes to a high CRS score is if you have work experience in Canada, if you're schooled or you've worked in Canada before. Many Nigerians, they do succeed in becoming Canadian permanent residents, even if they have never schooled or worked in Canada before. In this case, you have a great advantage because you have worked for 2 years in Canada before. And so instead of getting 0 in that area, you're going to get a good amount of points. Now, this reason is why people who school in Canada, find it very easy to become permanent residents and citizens eventually. So, in any case, you're going to be working there for 2 years, earning Canadian dollars, and you'll be encouraged by the Canadian authorities to please apply for permanent residency from within Canada, and then it becomes something of a walk in the park. So, like I said before, without a bachelor's degree or any post-secondary education like an OND or a HND, it becomes difficult for you to make a high CRS score because instead of adding 150, 135, or 120 points to your overall CRS score, you'll be netting a total of 0 points when it comes to your education credentials. And that is why this route is a great one for those without a bachelor's degree. And of course, even the very well qualified can take advantage of this opportunity as well. Also, many are scared of the IELTS examination, as I have said before, but with this route, the score that qualifies you is unbelievably low. It's just unbelievable, 4.0. So this route, it's not mine. I don't have intellectual property over the information, but it has been put together by someone who is very well known in this space. He is Mr. Daniel Damilola Nejo, and it will be smart of you to get a copy of this video guide now while it costs only 20,000 naira and includes a money back guarantee offer. Now, if you check out, you should check out his guide in this link, the link provided right here. Now, depending on where you're watching this video, you should see the link above this video or below the video. And if you are watching this video because you are subscribed to my email list, if you're watching this because you're subscribed to my email list, then you should receive this link in your email. Now, you can use the information I have provided you in this video combined with his guide to make your Canadian immigration dreams a reality. I cannot give you the information he has because I don't have intellectual property rights on his well done job. What I'm giving you now is what I have done, and I'm doing it for you. What he has done is his own intellectual property, but I'm recommending it because I know it is good. but I will still provide you valuable content at no extra cost to you. For example, I will be making a video showing exactly how to get your education credential assessment done using WES West. I'm going to do that video and I'm going to put it in my Facebook group so that you can use that and make the process easier for yourself. And every now and again, I will get information that helps you in your bid to be a permanent resident in Canada or get some international opportunity, schooling opportunity that helps you get established in a different country other than Nigeria. And of course, it helps me because I can serve many people at the same time. I do the video once, and you all can take a look at it and as many times as possible without me trying to pay attention to everyone individually. So, like I said, all other free travel related trainings I'll be providing will be done through my Facebook group where you will be able to receive notifications of new trainings. But for now, I'm advising you to go get Ms. Damilola's fantastic guide at this link. You may not be able to click on the link here, but if you go to my group, which I have placed here, the link to which I have placed here, you will be able to get the link and you'll be able to get it in your emails for those who subscribe using email. And depending on where you're watching this, if you're watching it on the website, my website, you're going to be able to find the link above or below this video. Now, these are some frequently asked questions about Daniel Damilola's guide. Number one, what is the age range of people that can apply for this visa? The answer to this question is that there is no age group for this visa. You just must be 18 and above. Second question is, can I apply with my family for this visa category? And the question is, yes, you can. And that is the beautiful thing about this visa. The answer is yes, you can. And that's the beautiful thing about this visa. Holders of this visa can bring their spouse and children under this visa category. Your spouse also gets a work permit. Can I get a work or job permit with this visa? Yes, as suggested by my previous answer, you will be able to get a job permit. As a matter of fact, you get a job upon arrival. You will have your work permit and eventually a permanent residency. So now these are a few more questions. Now, what makes this visa stand out from other Canadian visas? Now, as stated before, you have a low IELTS score requirement 4.0. You have low education qualification requirement, which is just a secondary school certificate. The proof of funds required for this is low compared to other visa categories. You get a job upon arrival, and there's a lot more. It is fast, it is cheap, and it is easier. Number 5, will I be able to get a permanent residency status with this visa option? I've already mentioned that, and what is good about this is that Mr. Daniel will be showing you the steps on how to transit from this category where you are working in Canada to being a permanent resident while already earning a living in Canada. So what do you get and how much does it cost? What you get is you get in your hands the method that saves you about 4,000 Canadian dollars in required proof of funds, as we saw in a previous slide. You get the pathway to making it as an immigrant into Canada, even though you have an IELTS test score as low as 4.0. You also have the pathway to permanent residency in Canada, even though you do not have a BSc, an OND, or a HND. And this costs only 20,000 naira. So, why buy now? Now, to those who buy now, I'm going to give you a special secret method by which Nigerians get to travel either visa free or using the visa on arrival route to 120 countries worldwide, including 26 European countries. These countries include Holland, Germany, Italy, Spain, and France. To have a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, you also get to have a copy of this PowerPoint presentation for keeps. What I'm going to do is, whether you buy this stuff or not, I'm still going to give you a copy of this PowerPoint presentation for keeps because I think it's something that you need. But for those who buy this stuff now, you're going to have these special reports on how to travel visa free to 120 countries worldwide, over 120 countries worldwide, including great countries in Europe. It's valid and it does work, and it's actually a fantastic route. You'll be able to do that for the foreseeable future if you get the report and if you can go through what is stated in the report. It's very straightforward and it's clear. So what if you buy Mr. Daniel's course and it doesn't work? Well, there is actually a refund policy on the product, as you'll find when you visit his page. There's a refund policy on the project on the product, and there's something that also happens where he's selling it right there. He doesn't get to get the funds. He doesn't get to get the money until you don't until you have clearly not asked for a refund. He doesn't get the money, so it's safe. He actually offers a money back guarantee, and it is one that you can take to the bank. So the risk is taken out for you. So what are you supposed to do next, and what do you expect when you do it? What you're supposed to do is to go to this link right here. If it's, you can't click on it and maybe you can't memorize it, that's not a problem. Like I said, there are several channels by which you can get the link. If you subscribe by email, you're going to see the link in your email. If you are in the group, you're going to see the link in the group. And if you are on my WhatsApp list, you're going to have the link on your you're going to have the link in your WhatsApp. I'm going to send it to you. All you need to do is, if you're on my WhatsApp list, you send a message and request for it, and then you get it. I'm not going to send it to those who don't request for it. So what you're supposed to do is go to this link, click on the green Get the Canada Visa Guide button, and then you'll be prompted to pay with Paystack using your Naira MasterCard. And then if you live outside Nigeria, you'll be prompted to use your card also. There's a different button to select if you want to pay with a card that is not Nigerian. Now, once you have made the payment, you'll be given full access to the video pack detailing this cheaper and faster route. So what do you do next? Continue. Now, what you do again is, once you have made your payment, you send your purchase ID to daffyriscott@gmail.com so that I can send you your bonus packages. Your bonus package consists of a special method by which Nigerians get to travel either visa free or using the visa on arrival route to over 120 countries worldwide, including 26 European countries. Imagine knowing that anytime you want to travel, you do not have any kind of stress whatsoever. You just get your money, pack up and go to the airport, and boom, you're off. So you're also going to get a soft copy of the slides you are looking at now. As a matter of fact, I've decided to give everybody a soft copy of these slides. So the main thing you're going to get is you're going to get this report that shows how Nigerians are traveling around the world visa free or using the visa on arrival route. So again, go get Daniel Damilola's fantastic guide here and request access to join my group on Facebook, Fast Easy Visas with Daffy Scott Irims. And that's it down there. If anyone wants to get to me for one reason or the other, my number is the number that was at the beginning of this presentation, and I'm going to call it out again: 080-5483-5557. Now, when I say one reason or the other, the main thing would just be if you want to get the link to purchase this Mr. Daniel's course. That's it. Now, I have to state something here. I've provided this to you so that you can help yourselves and you can try do this thing by yourself. And Mr. Damilola's course will also help you do it by yourself. However, if you feel that you still need my services, I am going to charge you very properly. I'm going to charge you very, very properly. I'm going to charge you very well. So I'm saying this to encourage you to use the information here, the information that I'm going to provide in the group and Mr. Damilola's course to make things easy for you and to make things easy for me too. So I'm thanking you for your attention, and that is all for now. Your future in Canada awaits you if you take the steps and follow them appropriately. Use the information here, use the information in my group that I am putting out there, and also use the information from Mr. Damilola, and everything is going to be fine. Those are my numbers there, and that's my Facebook group over there. And I'll say thank you for watching.